Greetings and welcome to another entry into LGR Edutainment Month. And today we're looking at Rescue the Scientists, a game released by Compton's New Media in 1994 for MS-DOS PCs. Einstein needs your help, among other scientists, due to the time-traveling hijinks of the aliens from planet Glixer 2. They're kidnapping Earth's great thinkers from all throughout history, wiping their memories, and thus eliminating their inventions and influence on society. Props to the Glixers for going against the grain and choosing something other than the usual body-snatching, death beams, and stripping the planet's resources. And of course, with time-traveling shenanigans in play, there's only one man to call. Dr. Emmett Brown, Time Cop Lieutenant Jack Tempest, played by the one and only Christopher Lloyd. Yep, as far as I can tell, this was the first computer game he appeared in, predating Toonstruck by a good 2 years. But unlike Toonstruck, Rescue the Scientists is barely remembered, its obscurity due partially to the fact that 1994 saw a Cambrian explosion in CD-ROMs. Sales for the format totaled a record $202 million in 1993, and by the end of 1994 there were up to 10,000 developers working on CD-ROM software. And getting Hollywood actors on board was an increasingly popular method of standing out from the crowd, with Compton's New Media hiring actor Christopher Lloyd to work with Redwood Games on development of Rescue the Scientists. And if Redwood sounds familiar, perhaps you've played some of the games from them developed by Karen Chun, like Word Rescue, Math Rescue, or Pickle Wars. Yeah, Pickle Wars was a real thing, but even that tends to be more well-remembered these days among DOS gamers compared to Rescue the Scientists. So let's dive into the package and see what we've been missing. First up is a folding registration card from Compton's, where you could apparently win a trip to a vaguely described Disney property hotel in Orlando, Florida. Next is a pair of pulpy papers presenting proper warranty information and technical troubleshooting tips. Then we've got a scary-looking warning, letting users know not to play the first track of the disc in a CD player because it was 1994, and not everyone knew about data tracks yet. And finally, there's the CD-ROM and manual tucked into a classic jewel case, with the manual packing 17 pages of blue-tinged documentation, clearly presented and easy to understand from beginning to end. Right, so it's time to finally get the thing installed on a DOS PC and rescue some scientists. It begins with an animated logo dissolve, then the classic Redwood Games character selection. Enter your name, choose either the girl or the boy character, and select your difficulty from a selection of 3 difficulties using a difficulty selector without much difficulty making a selection. After this, you're presented with an orbital view of Earth and a giant cosmic Christopher Lloyd in glorious 256 color VGA.
My name is Lieutenant Jack Tempest. I'm an officer in the Time Police. My job is to keep people from messing up the galactic time stream. And my biggest problem is the Glixerians. They travel all through space and time, leaving time rips, warps, rotten glove nuts, and a general mess behind them. And back in the 20th century, they're trying to invade the Earth, too.
Lieutenant Tempest continues to explain that the Glixerians, or Glixers, since the game uses both interchangeably, are not only wiping the memories of Earth's past scientists, but their continued time traveling is damaging the very fabric of reality, bringing about the destruction of all time, space, and the entire universe. He'd take care of the situation himself, but being that he's a 437-year-old time cop from 10,000 years into the future, he is now too old for time travel, which kinda makes him bad at his job, right? Or at least ill-suited. Anyway, that's his excuse for hiring a kid. Tempest needs someone young enough to time travel and stop the Glixerian threat. Speaking of which, the intro also has you listening in on the Glixerians, who are a race of slimy green aliens with a penchant for all things smelly and foul.
I brought the new time machine engine, you'll be diddy.
Excellent. Now our conquest of Earth can continue. Once we have administered the amnesia drug to key scientists, Earth technology will cease to exist.
Meanwhile, our 2 playable protagonists are hanging out in a diner on Earth, growing increasingly concerned about the disappearance of certain objects.
Did you notice all the seesaws in the park disappeared? Our solar oven disappeared too. And my dad's crowbar is missing. Some really strange things have been happening lately.
Well, concerned is a rather generous description, more like a little weirded out, but still pretty chill about things otherwise.
This is great. Today in geology class, every one of the geology textbooks disappeared. No homework. Boy, I bet you were heartbroken. Now, if only my English text would go up in a puff of smoke.
Things really get going when the family hot tub craps itself and dies. And for whatever reason, you're tasked with finding a replacement motor and repairing the hot tub.
The hot tub pump motor is burned out. I want you to go to Rosie's junk shop and see if she has one we can use. Okay, Mom.
Kinda seems like a qualified adult should be handling hot tub repairs, but what do I know? Besides, we've got a plot to unravel, which involves traveling to a junk shop and accidentally buying a super space-time translation machine instead of a hot tub motor.
Looks like Mom took out the broken motor. I'll just install this new one. Ah! What's going on?
Whoa. Looks like my young agent has accidentally created a time travel machine out of the family hot tub.
See, this is what you get when you hire an underage repairman, a hot tub time machine. Wait, hot tub time machine? This can't be the origin of the idea, right? Yeah, moving right along, the aliens immediately see that the SSTT motor is active and someone is traveling through time, but they remain unconvinced there's any threat, since there are so many translation vortices out there.
Calm your tentacles, you machinist! The translation vortices will put a quick stop to any human using the time travel engine!
Yeah, this intro just keeps going, man. We're 6 minutes in and still haven't been allowed to interact in any way at all. If I was an anxious kid, I'd be itching to hit escape and skip all this, but since I'm a slightly less anxious YouTuber, I'm happy to sit back and enjoy more Chris Lloyd.
Greece, 222 BC. Ancient Greece was a great place to live, but couldn't support many people because of its rocky soil and small area. So, groups periodically hit the road to found new city-states away from Greece. These city-states, which weren't called suburbs, were considered part of the Greek world if the citizens spoke Greek, even though some city-states were as far away as Spain.
Does his voice sound somewhat higher-pitched to you, or is it just me? I've played this on a few computers now, and his voiceover always sounds like that, like it's slightly sped up or pitch shifted or something.
Hey, Scott!
Anyway, you can now, at long last, take the reins and finally play the dang game, nearly 8 minutes in. Ancient Greece is the first of many stops on your travels through space-time, followed by France, China, England, Sweden, the US, and so on. Each of the 10 time periods are split into 4 levels, each with their own unique visuals, MIDI music, and amnesiac scientist in need of rescuing.
Oh, trepidation! I fear to report that the Earthling has restored Archimedes' memory!
Monstrous moons.
So there's certainly no shortage of overall content, but how is it to actually play? Well, it's an upgraded Pickle Wars, which was an upgraded Math Rescue, which was itself an upgraded Word Rescue. In other words, it's a Redwood Games game. And if you've played any of those, then Rescue the Scientists holds few surprises. Mechanically, it's closest to Pickle Wars, being a 2D platformer that scrolls in tiled increments both left and right and up and down. You know the routine. Lots of doors to unlock, colorful keys to unlock said doors, and hazards in the form of creatures to shoot. And these doorways act as warp zones, teleporting you around the level, providing access to new areas. Meaning that it plays more like a puzzle platformer than a pure action one, despite all the running, jumping, and shooting. You're always limited in where you can go until you unlock the next area, proceeding in linear fashion, section by section. And of course, there are the aforementioned vortices floating around, which if you touch them, provide an extra challenge in the form of the featureless maze. What fun! After all, who doesn't love random pointless mazes in their games, especially mazes labeled featureless? Nonetheless, this counts as one of the 8 minigames, and these minigames are where Rescue the Scientists differs the most from previous Redwood titles. And these games are not optional, since exiting a level requires specific components, just like in Pickle Wars. But instead of salad shooters, here your goal is to acquire historical artifacts. And in order to find each artifact, you have to play the minigames. Well, any minigame beyond the featureless maze. That doesn't unlock anything, it's just there to get on your nerves. But yeah, the other minigames exist, not only to provide much of the educational content by building reading comprehension and logic skills, but also to provide the artifacts needed to exit a level. Once you've found all 4 for a time period, you'll run into an amnesia-stricken scientist. Select their name from the list of possible subjects, and their memory will be restored. Hooray! On to the next period in time, and another speech from Doc Brown.
China, 1070 AD. The Chinese already had thousands of years of continuous civilization and culture. Gunpowder had been invented 200 years previously and was used in fireworks, which meant these guys had great parties.
Thanks, Professor Plum. So yeah, while platforming comprises a big chunk of the experience, the minigames are really what sets Rescue the Scientists apart. And one of the first you'll play is Word Search, a pretty standard search for 20 words hidden inside an alphabetical smorgasbord. However, you're not provided a list of words until after you've found them. Not exactly helpful. Or normal for that matter. Every other word search I've seen comes with a list of words to search for, but not here. Just look at this mess of letters until you find a possible word or your eyeballs bleed, whichever comes first. And if it weren't for the hint system that just straight up tells you the next word and its location, this would be far more irksome than it is. Oh yeah, well, while you're out platforming, you'll grab hint blocks by picking them up or by answering questions at hint stations. Read a short historical excerpt and then answer a question about it in the form of a multiple choice quiz. Do so correctly and you earn a minigame hint to jump ahead during certain sections of certain minigames. Pile up as many hints as you want because word searches are only the beginning. There are also cryptograms, where you're provided an unknown quote from an unknown author about an unknown topic. Using a hint will unscramble a single letter, otherwise you have to type in different letters and figure it out using logic, guesswork, and a little knowledge of the English language. Similarly, there's the phrase scramble minigame, where you are once again in the dark as to what you're trying to solve. Simply click the buttons along the bottom of the screen in the correct order and the phrase will reveal itself. Hints? Who needs them? Just click things until you win. Yeah, I don't know about you, but I sure feel educated after that. Another brain-dead minigame is the Jigsaw Puzzle, by far the easiest of the bunch. There's no need to explain this one, but hey, who am I but a slave to viewer watch time and audience retention? So a jigsaw puzzle is a piece of artwork that needs reassembling, albeit with simplistic rectangular pieces in the example I'm showing here. You aren't shown what the end result is, so just click around until it tells you it's complete. Next up is the word scramble, which again is a mixture of logic and guesswork, except this time you're decoding a crossword. Kinda. It's not really a traditional crossword since the words don't cross so much as they run parallel to each other. Even though several letters connect in the middle along the y-axis, all you need to worry about is the x-axis, with definitions for each row appearing below the puzzle. And once it's unscrambled, one more word is spelled right down the middle of the board, revealing the next artifact. A bit odd, but it's fine once you realize what's going on. Another minigame that provides a little frustration is the Mastermind game. And I mean, I've got nothing against Mastermind, it's pure logic and I enjoy that. My issue is the tedious execution here. So you've got 5 doors and 5 lights, and your goal is to change the lights to the proper color. But you do this by walking over to each door, pressing enter to cycle the colors, then walking back over to the question box and pressing enter again to check your results along the bottom of the screen. I'd much prefer using the mouse to click on each door instead, but oh well. Compared to the most annoying minigame of all though, it's fine. Say hello to the Alien card game, which once again revels in the player having no clue what to do.
Here's the deal. If you win, I'll let you go.
All right, it's a deal.
Take your cards and let's play.
So how do I play this game?
I didn't say I was going to tell you the rules. That's not part of the deal. You'll have to figure it out yourself.
Oh, terrific.
Yep, this is a minigame where the only rule is that there are no rules. Well, there are rules, but you're never told what they are. The only way to find out is by trial and error. Not only that, but every time you play, the rules change. This means that you're guaranteed to fail for a while until you A, logically deduce the rules before the alien wins, or B, get lucky enough to win enough points the fastest. You know, it's off-putting enough that these minigames stop the platforming action dead in its tracks, making you forget where you were by the time you return to it, but this card game is particularly egregious since it can take 5 to 10 minutes to complete every single round, since success only happens by losing enough times, deducing the rule set, and then getting lucky enough with each hand. Not to say it's stupidly difficult, none of these minigames are, it's still meant for kids after all, but the more you're forced to play, the more tiresome it becomes, outright killing the rest of the game's momentum. And with 10 worlds holding 4 levels each, that's 40 times you'll have to repeatedly play these same minigames back to back over and over, with half a dozen rounds of this card game alone.
Oh no, not again.
Come to think of it, I might enjoy these minigames a little more as part of a dedicated puzzle game rather than an unskippable roadblock within a platformer, kinda like The Fool's Errand from 1989, a puzzle game bearing a striking resemblance to the minigames in Rescue the Scientists. Word searches, cryptograms, featureless mazes, rectangular jigsaw puzzles, crosswords where you form a single word down the middle, and even a card game where you don't know the rules except by losing enough times to deduce them yourself. Whether this was an amusing coincidence or an intentional ripoff, it matters little to me, since either way it doesn't quite hit the mark as either a puzzle game or an educational platformer. Rescue the Scientists is one of those titles where the minigames detract from the action, and the action makes the minigames feel like a chore. And this is unfortunately pretty common among mid-90s edutainment games too. Balancing educational side activities with arcade entertainment is always tricky, and developers tried every method under the sun to mesh the two together. But tossing a bunch of cumbersome minigames into a platformer, no thank you. Much as I've enjoyed the other Redwood games, not even digitized Christopher Lloyd is enough to make me recommend this one.
A constitution is a document that keeps kings and presidents from getting too outrageous when signing laws and talking to the press.
And if you enjoyed this episode of LGR Edutainment Month, then great! More is on the way throughout April, and I've done a lot more in the past as well, so check those out if you haven't. And as always, thank you very much for watching LGR.